Hey everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I am doing my review of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2025, the remake, whatever we want to call this movie from here on out. This one was a real big surprise. It really came out of nowhere. I only found out about this movie, I'd say maybe a month ago. Really had no idea prior to that it was even coming out. I've seen the first two and the remake. I haven't seen like the other ones in between. I've seen bits and pieces of them, but I haven't actually sat down and watched them fully. Like I'm pretty sure I've watched like the kill counts from like Dead Meat on them and things, but I've never actually sat down and watched them. The only ones I watched are the original, the second one, and the 2012 remake, just Silent Night. And I really enjoy the first one. I think the first one is pretty good. I mean, it's not great. You know, it's obviously very low budget. It's a generic slasher, but it's fun for what it is. The second one is only good. Let me repeat that. The only good part about the second one is obviously the famous Garbage Day meme. That's great, and you know, it's hysterical. It's just so funny. And then I thought the Silent Night, Deadly Night, or the Silent Night 2012 remake was okay. It was very low budget again. Like, it looked even worse, to be honest, than the original, in my opinion. A lot of very obvious practical effects, like rubber silicone bodies were used for like kills and things. It was very obvious that it was fake. But I still thought it was pretty good. They actually try to have some semblance of a plot and develop like the main characters and things. It wasn't just generic slasher, so I appreciated that. The new one that I saw last night with Rohan Campbell, I think was by far the best of the series. Again, we're not even going to talk about 3, 4, and I think 5. I think there was a 5th one before the 2012 one. We're not even going to talk about those. They're just trash. But this new one was by far the best, and I am going to break it down for you and explain to you why I thought it was the best. So let's get into it. All right, so I think the main highlight of the film was definitely the cast, mainly Ruby Modine as Pam, and obviously Rohan Campbell as Billy. You know, we've seen them before in other horror stuff. Obviously, Rohan Campbell was Corey Cunningham in Halloween Ends, and Ruby Modine was in Happy Death Day. She was like the killer all along or whatever in the first one, and she shows up in the second one again. And I enjoyed them both in that role. Obviously, Halloween Ends is very controversial. Not a lot of people like Corey Cunningham. I actually enjoyed the character for what he was. I just wish it was done in a different movie. But I think he is by far the best adaptation of the Santa Claus Killer. I mean, they show us a very different like side of him. He's very different this version. He's much more human. You know, we get to spend more time with him. They flesh out his character. We know his morals, that he'll only kill bad people. And I know that's like a running theme of the series, but let's be honest, a lot of those earlier killers just ran around and killed whoever the fuck they wanted, whether they were good or not, or whether they were bad or not. Rohan Campbell's actually has a moral compass. He you know, it's a pact, it's a code that he will not break. You know, he only kills people who deserve it in his eyes. You know. And I'm glad they did that. But I'm also, it's kind of like a give and a take. You know, it makes the character more interesting, but it also makes him extremely less intimidating. You know, and because of that, you kind of have to have a main villain that he's going after. He's kind of more like the superhero in this movie, the protagonist, if you will. Whereas in the other ones, he really wasn't the protagonist. He was the antagonist, and there was always someone else chasing the Santa Claus, if that makes sense. Again, whereas in this, it's kind of vice versa. He is the protagonist, even though he is the Santa Claus killer. Which I thought was, again, a different take, but it just makes him as the Santa Claus killer way less intimidating. And I think Ruby Modine as the love interest was great. I think she brought a nice dynamic to it, you know. This kind of sweet girl, but she also has a bit of a dark side and has her own inner demons and stuff, and you know that gets relayed to us, and we can start to relate to her a little bit. I know I definitely could with you know the fact that she just has this low temper, you know, and she could freak out like that, and you know that's definitely relatable. And I think they both played off each other nicely. Again, it gave me huge like flashbacks to Corey and Allison in Halloween Ends. Just definitely not as toxic. But again, it just felt similar. Um, but yeah, their relationship was again definitely a huge highlight. This movie also had some fantastic sequences, some really great sequences. Obviously, the whole uh, Nazi party scene where he just goes in and he just starts killing everybody and they're all dressed like Santas, and then the chick who's leading it starts firing a fucking Uzi at him, and it's a great, awesome, fun sequence. It's just this big, broad sequence in the film, and there's so many, it's just so many kills in that sequence. It's just fun. It's just fun. It's carnage candy. It's gore. It's just fun to see him go around and just axe up a bunch of people who deserve it, right? Because again, they're all Nazis. And so that was such a fun sequence. But I think the best sequence in the movie, which in a sequence I was astonished by, and it was one of the best sequences I've seen in a horror film ever, or a slasher film, I'll say, is the ball pit sequence at the end when Pam gets taken by, I think they call him the Snatcher. I think that's what they called the main bad guy in this. He has her under the ball pit, and you hear Charlie, which is his inner voice, which I'll get to. And he's the voice is directing him where they're at under the ball pit, and it's telling him, it's like, okay, you're gonna go forward 3 steps, you're gonna stop, you're gonna look to your left, and he's right there with a knife to her throat and her mouth covered, and he's like, you got to be careful though, because she's on top. And I just thought that was such a interesting sequence. It was just cool. Like, it was awesome. And it was so, like, I had me on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh, what's gonna happen, And it was a great sequence. It was incredible. I was astonished by it. And that leads me into my next point. Charlie's inner voice in this movie was great. Or sorry, Billy's inner voice in this movie, Charlie, was great. And the way they tied it into his inner voice being the man that murdered his parents. So, like, I guess the big twist in this movie is that his parents were actually pieces of shit. That big difference from the original. And that's why the Santa Claus killed his parents, because they were like pieces of shit. And he ends up transferring his powers into Billy once the mom really injures Charlie. And he acts as Billy's moral compass. He pretty much raised him. He acted like this father figure, and he tells him what's wrong and what's right to do. He tells him like who's bad, who's good, who not to kill, who to kill, and he genuinely was good for him. He didn't ever really steered him wrong, aside from obviously having him go kill people. But like, you get what I'm saying. And I really thought that was interesting. It brought so many different like comedic scenes to the film. It worked great as comedy. There was tons of great comedic scenes with that, but there was also some really emotional, heartfelt scenes. Like at the end when Billy's about to die and Charlie says his goodbye to him, and he's like, "I don't want you to go. I want you to stay." That was actually pretty heartfelt, even though, we watched this guy murder Billy's parents, but. So the inner voice was an interesting take, and I actually really enjoyed it. I appreciated it. It was good. One of the highlights of the movie. In terms of how the powers transferred, I was not a fan of the way they did it. The whole red lightning, and they're like, oh, it looked really cheap and just cheesy. I wasn't a big fan of that. That was one of my least favorite parts of the movie, but it was so minute and small. It wasn't too big of a deal. I also really liked some of the kills in this movie. Some of them were really good. There was others that weren't so good. I think the main problem with the kills in this movie is a lot of them were just quick slices and stabs, and I'm guessing it was because the budget was low. But if you pay attention, a lot of the kills are just quick stabs and slices, and you don't really see it. It kind of cuts away as soon as it happens. There's only maybe like 6 kills in this movie where it actually like focuses heavy on it, and it shows you like the gore. Something that comes to mind is when Billy axes the guy in the head in his living room. He's sitting on his sofa. That was a good kill. We saw Billy like let the car crush the guy's head near the end, and like the whole kill montage was awesome too. By the way, again, none of it was actually like that in depth. And like there was not too many practical effects going on there. Obviously, we saw the recreation of the antler kill, which still done best in the original, in my opinion. But And then the decapitation kill on the I guess it was like the snowmobile or whatever you want to call it, whatever it was, or the quad. That obviously that was a callback to the original with the kids sledding or whatever. That was a cool kill. I didn't find any of the kills to be some of the best kills I've ever seen in a slasher. They were nothing too crazy, but there were some decent ones in there. Another part that again I really enjoyed about this movie, I like I think the changes they made were necessary, and then they didn't feel just like there for no reason. It actually felt like a justified reason to remake this story and to tell a better version of it. They cut out all the orphanage shit, which I was happy about, because honestly, that was the stuff I cared about the least in the first movie. And so instead of him being this orphan, he's a drifter, and he just goes around to towns and kills people. And then that's how he gets hired at the store. He just comes into town and applies, and he gets hired there. And I think that was a lot better of a story than him just leaving an orphanage, growing up, by growing up and then working at a store and then just going on his kill spree. I like the way they did it better. I think they did it better in this. And I think having the parents kill the grandpa at the beginning, instead of, the grandpa just being like, just kind of sitting there. They kind of fake you out at first, because the kid, Billy's calling his grandpa's name and he's not answering, but then when he gets close to him, he's fine. So obviously, like, the grandpa in the original is like playing vegetable, or he's acting, obviously. So I thought that was a nice change as well, that, the parents were evil the whole time. And like I said, man, this sequel just felt fresh. It felt new. It felt necessary. It didn't feel ham-fisted, or like it didn't feel like a why are we getting this remake? I keep saying sequel. I meant remake. But yeah, overall, man, this is really positive. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I thought this was one of the best slashers of this decade so far. I would say my top 3 are probably this, Scream 6, and Halloween Kills. I know some people would argue differently. People would probably put one of the 2 Black Phones in there. I wouldn't. I don't think I haven't seen the second one. I didn't think the first one was that great. I know there's a select group of people who would put the Terrifiers in there. God only knows why. They're all 3 of them are bad. Sorry for you Terrifier fans, but they're just bad movies. So yeah, I really think that, like, those are the 3 best ones of this decade so far. And this may be at the top of the list. It's a really good movie. It just is. I would definitely recommend going to the theater and checking it out. Not a lot of people were at my theater. I'm assuming this movie's not going to make much at the box office, so I recommend go to the theater, go watch it. It's a really good watch. It's very fun, and yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, make sure to drop a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.